Hi, everyone. Welcome to our next presentation. It's a pleasure being here as a moderator of this session. Like many of us, Ken Colley joined Toastmasters to improve his public speaking skills. What Ken hadn't anticipated when he joined was the added benefit of leadership development the program provides. The leadership opportunities he experienced through Toastmasters have been life-changing at both our personal and professional level. These opportunities include serving as a district governor, international director, and District 4 Pathways Chief Ambassador. In his role as Chief Ambassador, Kit led a team of fellow Toastmasters in 2016 to introduce Pathways to the clubs of District 4. Since the program's release, Ken has delivered an introduction to Pathways seminar many times here in District 4 and in other districts within Region 2. With the program entering its 7th year in District 4, Ken felt we deserve a presentation that takes us beyond the basic, one that covers how to get most out of each of the components that make up a Pathways assignment. Please help me welcome distinguished Toastmasters Ken Colley for getting the most out of the Pathways. Over to you, Ken.
Thank you, Diana. Tell me, and I forget. Teach me, and I remember. Involve me, and I learn. That quote from Benjamin Franklin sums up what I feel is best about the Toastmasters education program. We learn by doing. Each of the assignments is designed to teach us about a critical communication or leadership skill. And we are given the opportunity to practice and develop related skills. Unfortunately, many members jump straight to the doing without digesting the wealth of material provided. While some might occasionally give a great speech, they've missed out on the learning opportunity the program provides. This morning, I'm going to cover how to get the most out of the materials provided by Pathways. Now, the Pathways program uses the learning methodology shown here. You assess your level of knowledge or comfort level with a subject or skill. You study that subject. You practice the skill, typically by giving a speech in your program, speech within your club, or if you're doing one of the leadership tracks, actually practicing applying a leadership skill. You get feedback through your evaluation, and then you assess your knowledge or comfort level again to see how you've improved. And then you move on to the next project, or if you want, you loop back through that same project to further develop the skill. And I'll talk more about that later in the presentation. Now, to prepare for this presentation, I compared materials from 3 level 1 projects to determine their main components, which I've outlined in the handout, which will be made available for download. And while I haven't seen all the materials for all 11 paths, every project I've reviewed follows the pattern I'll discuss this morning. Now, before I go on, I did about a 5 to 7 minute piece of this in my club last night, and my evaluator pointed out, well, that was bait and switch. You weren't talking about how to get the most out of Pathways. You were talking about level 1. Everything I talk about this morning, even though I use level 1 as my example, this covers every single thing, every single project in Pathways. I'm just using level 1 as an example because I'm assuming everybody here has at least started on level 1 or has been through it. So everything I talk about, you can apply to all the levels and all the projects. Okay, so coming back to the slide, you may have noticed that project navigation is common to all 3 level one projects, but I didn't bother highlighting it. Well, that's because after you get through the first three projects, it's been determined you should know how to get through the navigation. So it's not repeated after that, but it doesn't go on into any of the other projects. Now, the first component of all the projects is the introduction. And as you would expect, it tells you about the topic and why it's important. Next, we come to the assignment. It provides the project's purpose along with an overview of the assignment. For example, one we're all familiar with, the icebreaker. It's to introduce yourself to the club and learn the basic structure of a public speech, of a presentation. Note that while the overview covers your speech assignment, it's not about what you'll be learning. So it covers what the assignment is, not what you're learning. What you'll be learning shows up in more other areas. Be sure to download the project checklist. Many people don't bother with this, but it helps you organize and prepare for your assignment. Here we see the project checklist for the icebreaker. As you would expect, the later projects require more and more items on the checklist. For the checklist gets bigger and bigger, especially you get into levels 2, 3, 4, and 5. It gets pretty intense. Now, the handout that I'll be providing a link for includes all the assignments for level 1 as examples and the main assignments for level 2. And the ones at level 2 that I haven't included are those that can be an elective in a different level 3 path. Next, we come to assess your skills. Here, you evaluate your current knowledge or comfort level with the skills related to the project. Now, the one part here that I hear so much grumbling about is, why do I have to take the assessment twice? I'm sure many of you have wondered that. You take it at the beginning and then you take it again at the end. Why did I have to take it a second time? Well, the purpose of that is to see how your knowledge level or comfort level has improved. And taking assessments in before and after training, it's a very common practice in adult learning. To get the most out of the assessment now, I suggest you be completely honest. I mean, you don't have to worry, only you are going to see it. So you want to really assess yourself at the beginning and then see, did you learn as you went through this project? So moving on, we come to the competencies. Competencies are defined as the ability to do something successfully or efficiently. In business, they're all the related knowledge, skills, abilities, and attributes that define your job. And as you review these attributes or these competencies for each of the projects, step back and think about, how can I apply this to my career? And how can you put them into practice in your career or anything else that you're using public speaking for or leadership? Now, these example corporate competencies I'm showing here, these are fairly typical of most companies, and most of them align with those you're going to develop in pathways. So as with the assignments, when you get to the handout, I've included level 1 competencies and the main ones for level 2. So finally, we come to the meat of the project. These are the topics. And the number of topics will vary from project to project to project. This is the part you want to spend the most time studying. You really, if you want to get something out of this, that's where you really need to put your attention. You want to read all the material and watch the videos. Don't do the thing. I know so many members have told me, well, I just start the video and turn down the volume so I can move on to the next section. Well, the only one they're cheating is themselves. They're losing the benefit of what those videos provide. And also be sure to take the quizzes to assess whether you should review the material again. If you're not able to answer the questions properly in the quizzes, it might be good to go back over and review things. And a good way to review is to download the print version of the project, so you can review that offline. It's a PDF file that's available to you. The link is available at the bottom of your evaluation section, which is available from a drop-down section of the project window. And as I said, when you click that link, it'll open up a print version. I wouldn't suggest printing it. They can get pretty hefty. For my own club, when we were meeting live, I had copies of the first 3 projects to share with guests to give them an idea. I wouldn't give them away because it ended up being a lot of ink out of my printer, but to sit and talk about the Pathways program. And then while you're there, download all the resources provided. There's quite a few available. So other than for the videos, the print version contains everything that's provided in the online version. And I've actually noticed some of the later ones are doing almost a script of what the script was for the video. So it's a great resource of trying to step back online material. So before moving on to your actual assignment, before your speech, you want to spend some time with the review and apply section. Read through all the questions provided and decide whether you can comfortably answer them. And if not, go back and review the related material. Now, here you move on to complete your assignment. Once again, review the purpose and overview to make sure you fully understand what your speech should entail. And if you haven't already done so, as I mentioned, download and use the project checklist to help you organize and prepare for your assignment. Now, I can't emphasize enough, everything I've talked about now takes work, but it's where you're going to get something out of Pathways. If it's just about reading a little bit, in fact, honestly, I think I did a little bit of this myself, and a lot of members back in the old communication and leadership, they just read that little box at the top of the page telling you what the objectives were, and then they'd write a speech. Well, we didn't get much out of the program when we did that. And I see a lot of the same happen with Pathways. So moving on, you want to download and review the evaluation form before giving your speech. And be sure to read the notes to the evaluator and the evaluation criteria, and make note of anything you want additional feedback on and provide it along with the form to your evaluator. And for those of us meeting online, you share it by email and then maybe jot a few notes. On the day of your speech, if you're meeting in person, be sure to bring your evaluation form for the evaluator. Don't expect them to do the printing. You go ahead and do it. And take a moment to go over the form with your evaluator and pass on anything you would like to be evaluated on. Now, one thing you want to do is point out the unique portion of the evaluation criteria that addresses this specific project. Many evaluators have missed this unique portion, thinking the criteria is the same for all evaluation forms. That's one of those grumbles, those things I've heard people grumbling about Pathways. It's like, well, the evaluation form's useless. It's just the same form over and over again. Well, they're missing the fact that there are specific sections for the project. So you want to definitely review those yourself and make sure your evaluator reviews them. The standard sections there, describing the basic skills like clarity, voice variety, or vocal variety, gestures, and so on. Those are there to help newer members understand what they should be looking for when they're your evaluator. Finally, you come to the point of giving your speech. And actually, if you think about it, it's the tiniest piece of everything you've been doing. If you've really tried to get a lot out of pathways, you've probably spent a couple hours on this to give that 5 to 7 minute speech. And yes, the speech is important, but it's the learning. The speech is there for us to practice what we've learned. So if you have that in your mind, I think you're going to get a lot more out of the materials. And then you're going to go back over the skills assessment again and compare it to the one you did before starting the project. And if you really study this material and use it the way I described, I'm pretty confident you will find an improvement. Note that you must complete the second skills assessment to complete a project before moving on to the next one. That's something that was missed early on in Pathways. It was a common gotcha back when we weren't allowed to get out of the current project until we finished. They didn't understand why they couldn't click to go forward. Now we can move forward. It's kind of like with the old one. It's like we've assumed it was like just flipping through the manual to the next speech. So you definitely want to make sure you do that second assessment. And as before, I recommend really being honest with yourself so that you can see, have I picked up? Have I learned from this? As members, we sometimes need to deliver a speech that's not in line with our next project. Maybe it's practicing a presentation for work or an upcoming event. Last night, I practiced the first 5 to 7 minutes of this just to get a feel of how it was going and get feedback from my fellow members. Or there's a presentation skill, a specific skill you want to work on. Or you could even be competing in your club's international speech contest and you want to get feedback for that. So originally, that required setting pathways aside. But a few years ago, at the request of the members, and World Headquarters does listen to us, it just takes, they're a big organization, there's a lot of us, they do listen, and they made a change to Basecamp to address this. Our projects are now unlocked. You're not locked into where I have to step through an order. I can jump around based on what I need, what I'm trying to do, regardless of what path you're currently working on or what level you're on. And this means you have access to all the electives projects within the path you're working on. And within this, you have many options to develop a presentation skill while delivering a speech outside of your assigned project. And it also means your evaluator has the form to know what are they evaluating you on, not just great speech, great vocal variety. I loved your gestures. You might do this next time. They can look at what you're trying to practice, what skill you're trying to develop. And that's why the evaluation form is so valuable for you to get that feedback. To access the elective projects, just simply select level 3 in your project and click on view details. And as you can see here, there's a very large number of electives that are available to us. So they vary a little bit from project to project or level to level, but there's just a large wealth of things you can go through. Last night, I used the one on presentation software. So here we see some electives that can be used with just about any project. And actually, 2 of them listed here are just another example of how World Headquarters really does listen. Originally, using vocal variety and effective body language was only an elective. A couple of years ago, or about a year and a half ago, it was moved into level 1 because so many members talked about how important it was to get that right away. So World Headquarters made that part of level 1. Now, if you were already working on a path, you're still working through the old one. I had that until I started another path, and then I got access to where it became level 1. And then again, you can use any of these electives if you haven't reached, even if you haven't reached level 3 yet. When you complete a level, be sure to launch the level completion dialog. Note that it will not be available until you complete all the projects or required number of electives for a level. So that a lot of people miss that one. That's just, there's so many things, but that one doesn't pop up until you've completed everything else with a level. And before the paths were unlocked, as it's the way it is now, you couldn't move forward at all, which is, it's easy to jump past this and forget it. And you want to make sure that you get credit for having completed the levels or completed a specific level. So once you've completed a level, a Basecamp manager, even though this presentation isn't about Basecamp, but this happens so often, I think it's worth bringing up. Your Basecamp manager, typically your club's VP of E, needs to approve your request. And not all VPEs, Vice President of Education, on top of this. So you may need to remind the officer or one of the other managers, the club secretary or treasurer, to do this. And there's one last step that some officers miss. They need to submit the educational award through Club Central. Now, I believe the main reason for this is that the notification of the requirement does not automatically go to the VPE or a specific Basecamp manager. It goes to the club contact on record with World Headquarters. And either the member receiving it doesn't know what to do with the notification, or the email address on record maybe for somebody who's no longer in the club. So that's something it's really worth checking as a club officer or as a member of your club to make sure that the contact email is an active email box, because that even happens with guests. It happened in my own club for a while. The person who was the contact of record wasn't doing anything with guest requests. Anyway, fortunately, this whole step goes away next year. Once the new Pathways Learning Management System launches, all that'll be required is that approval back in Basecamp. So once again, World Headquarters has listened. First, they're giving us a replacement for Basecamp, which probably gets the biggest number of complaints. Having been a training manager, I understand there is no really good learning management system out there, but there are some better than others. They're all painful. But World Headquarters has looked in to get it. We're actually spending the money for us to have a new learning management system. All right, so if you haven't already done so, you want to choose your next path. And note one thing that a lot of people do not realize: you can work on one or two or more paths simultaneously. I'm actually got 3 in process right now. You don't have to complete one path before selecting another. Now, the gray filled boxes at the bottom show the 2 paths that I'm currently working on, and I've got another one that I'm wrapping up. Now, some of these existing paths won't be migrated to the new learning system, to the new learning management system. But if you've already started on them, you can complete them. You're not bumped out of a path that you're working on. Now, I have not been given direct information, but my assumption as to why they're dropping these is cost savings. They've chose the paths that very few members are working on. You may be one that's working on them, but these are paths that get very, very little use. Like they dropped the printed manuals, offering to do printed instead of online, because something like 1% of the members worldwide were using the printed documents. So they dropped those as a cost savings. So again, this is simply my opinion. I haven't confirmed it, but I think it's based on the cost savings in choosing those paths that really aren't getting much use. Now, I've talked about some of the criticisms. I like to answer those criticisms. One I've heard just this week is what is about Pathways needing to repeat some of the projects when I start a new path. Personally, I don't see this as an issue. Learning is a continuous process. And by repeating these, we can refine and further develop our knowledge and skills by repeating these level 1 projects. Personally, I've decided to take this a step further. I now have completed the presentation mastery path. I've started it again with the goal of taking my presentation skills up to a higher level. I wanted to get better at it. Plus, one of the things I've decided to do, at least in my club, I don't know about some of you, but some of us got lazy during COVID, and we started doing scripted speeches, and we sit down in front of a camera. I've decided for my club speeches, I'm going to stand, and it's no longer going to be scripted. I need to get back into giving a better speech. And as I go through this, I'm going to dig deeper into those materials, even though I've seen them all again, and I'm going to step out of my comfort zone when presenting, because I want to take it further. And then one of the requirements for the Distinguished Toastmasters is to complete a DTM project. And not many people know about this, but you're required, part of when you apply for DTM, there's many different things. Well, you have to do 2 paths plus some other things. And one of them is the DTM project. You have to, it doesn't automatically happen. You have to request access. Now, and to be able to get a hold of the slide, I requested access yesterday afternoon, and it was given to me by the evening. And you have to have completed 1 full path, and then levels 1 through 3 on a second unique path in order to get access to it. And you just send an email. It's on the international site, but it's educationprogram@toastmasters.org. So, fellow Toastmasters, as you consider how to approach your own learning path, I leave you with a quote from poet Maya Angelou. Nothing will work unless you do. I thank you, and now we'll open things up for Q&A. And also, I've added on this slide that the handouts that I've mentioned throughout here are available on bit.ly/KC-pathways. It's not my slide deck. It's just materials from Pathways that give you a good overview of things. And with that, Diana, if you want to start reading some questions.
For sure. Thanks, Ken. Your presentation was so great. And the first question is, we understand that Toastmasters headquarters has decided to reduce the number of paths. How will this impact those who were progressing through one of these now eliminated paths?
Okay, that's something where I haven't seen the specific, but you will continue. It's possible that when, again, I'm going by opinion, but to me it makes sense that you'll still be on the old Basecamp for that project, and then new projects that if you get a new project, you'll be moving over to the new LMS. I'm assuming there'll be 2 links available until people finish and those paths that they started on under those ones that have been eliminated, that will be eliminated.
Regarding this doubt, when do we need to complete the paths that are being dropped?
I don't think they're giving us any deadline on it. They've said they'll be available. So I'm assuming it'll be available until, it's like they're going to keep it running until they're done, but that's really from world headquarters. I don't know if they're going to, I mean, at some point they're paying for Basecamp. They're paying for that to be housed on a learning management system. They may have to eventually shut it down, but I don't know. I don't know the logistics of that.
Something that is important to mention is that if you have started the path, you will continue to have access. So they will not be available for new registration.
Right, that's all it is. You can't start it after they launch the new learning management system.
Thank you, Ken. There is another question, and it's regarding, is there any tip to choose a pathway that you can share with all of us?
Okay, the way I did it, I'll be honest, that little evaluation they had you do, I don't think it gave us anything. I think we all found that whatever we filled out, the same three things were recommended to everybody. I would look at what is it that I want to work on. A little self plug, go to dtm.org. I'm sorry, not DTM. Let me say that again. D4TM for District 4 Toastmasters.org. And then click on under quick links. There's a section there on pathways resources. Go ahead and look at the description of each of the 11 paths, or the ones, maybe look at I'll eventually put something there about the ones going away, but look at the description and see which ones resonate with what you're interested in, what skill you want to develop, what skill you need for work. You know, for me, I sucked at humor. I was not funny. I did one of the paths that I just have one final project to do for is engaging humor. And it was not how to be a joke master, not how to be a stand-up comic, but how to bring humor into my speeches. And it made a big difference. I believe I got feedback even from my strongest critic, my most honest critic in my club, that she saw a tremendous difference after I finished the engaging humor.
Thank you, Ken. As for the people who is new choosing pathways, what kind of materials we can find on the website to help to start all the talks about pathways?
That's where I was mentioning d4tm.org. We have some, along with complete description of all the paths and just a lot of information there about each path. We also have some tutorials on how to get started in Basecamp, how to submit your levels, and all of that is available in the educational section on D4TM. In fact, let me just very quickly bring that up. There we go. This is the District 4 website. And the quickest way to get to what I'm talking about is in this yellow area, the quick links, click on Pathways Resources. And, just a quick thing about Pathways, whole list of resources that are available, an overview of the program. This is where your question, how to get started, and it walks you through the steps of getting started and how to go onto Basecamp. Got some more information that is available there. This area is for Basecamp managers, and then some FAQs that we put together. All right. So again, d4tm.org. And I think I even made that /pathways, but click the link just to be sure.
Awesome. There is another question. There is a review your path model that at the end of each path. I almost looks optional, but it's not. How important do you think this model is to keep?
Oh, that very last one about doing a speech about reviewing your path. I'm assuming that's what the question's about.
Let me check if we have more
Well,
information.
there is one called review your path. I did it. It means asking your club to put up with a 20-minute speech, but it's another reason why I haven't done it for engaging humor yet. I try to space these out because you are commandeering a large part of your club's meeting. It's a 20-minute speech. I found it very important because it allowed me to sit back and reflect on what I learned and share that with the club. And when I did it that's when I made the promise to my club going forward. I talked about it would be my last speech, pathway speech, that I did sitting at the computer reading a script.
All right. You mentioned that we can choose many pathways. Is there a possibility to choose a pathway for each club, at least each club that we are enrolled?
Yes, absolutely. It means it's going to take you longer to get through it, but if you belong to multiple clubs, you can have a different path for each club. I don't think you can be working on you can't do like I'm doing presentation, mass, whatever, presentations. I can't do two of them at the same time. World headquarters, they don't allow that. So if you belong to two different clubs, it has to be two different paths. You can't be working on the same path twice, unfortunately. You can repeat a path after you're done, but you can't be working on it two different times.
Good to know. Maybe more text, but you can learn even faster and better. Thank you. Does anyone have more questions about this session? It has been really helpful for everyone.
Yeah, we've got about 6 minutes left if anybody has any more questions.
I put a couple of questions on the chat. This is Linda. You want me to tell you what the question is?
Sure, since we got your mic, go ahead, Linda. Give me the first question and then we'll go to the next.
New members don't really understand when they're doing the assessment. I didn't when I first started 1 through 5. And if I had a question, are you, what do you assess yourself at, on this one criteria? And I would say, oh my God, I'm a 5 on that. Then I had no place to go after when I reassessed myself, I had no place to go. So then I thought, oh, maybe I should start giving myself a 3 if I think I'm really great. So what does Toastmasters say about 1 through 5?
Well, in my opinion, if you're really good at something, when I'm assessing myself, I never go above a 4. I rarely give myself a 5, but that's a self thing. If I feel like I'm really competent in something, I'll say 4 or 5, and it'll just be the same number at the end. But if we're really, really honest with ourselves, are we fully like absolute experts on something? I mean, in my mind, there's room for all of us to grow. That's why I'm repeating things.
Yeah. Okay.
You had another question?
There are new numbers on the Toastmaster International website that are links to documents, and I've seen those now recently, and I was wondering, is there a list that we can go to see these numbers?
I'm not sure what numbers you're talking about.
Okay, well, if you go on the website and then you type in the search, you say, okay, I want to go to pathways, introduction to pathways or something, anything you want to find. When it pops up with that link, it also has an attached number. I think it's a document number. Have you seen that?
I'm assuming it's a document number and then you just click on that. I don't know if there's a total just list of those documents though.
Okay. All right, well, that's my questions. Thanks.
All right then. And we've actually hit the end. So we are at the red. I want to thank everybody. Unless we have one burning question, we got 2.5 minutes. One burning question. Any more drop into the chat?
There's another one. I think it's very easy to answer. Do you know anything about how the new software will make the education system easier to navigate?
I haven't seen it yet. I would assume they picked it, given that the complaints about Basecamp were about navigation. I would hope that was the #1 criteria about the new one, that it's easier to navigate. But I haven't seen it. I'm assuming there might have been some members, just as I was part of a team that got to see the original Basecamp. I don't know, but like that's the biggest gripe. So I would hope somebody made that the #1 criteria in choosing the new Basecamp.
All right. Well, I believe that is all. Thank you. Thank you, Ken, so much for your brilliant presentation. It was very informative and very helpful for everyone. And thank you, everyone, for being here and being very responsive and engaged. It was very interesting. And well, the time is over for this session. So back to you, Gretchen. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.